All right, here we go. Welcome back in. This is Hawk Talk on Melrose. I am Collin, joined today with Tyler, going over, don't know how it was done, but a win for Iowa against Nebraska, 13-10. Always feels good to beat them. And yeah, it was ugly at times. The first three quarters were horrible, but we found a way, and that's all that matters. What's going on, Tyler?
Yeah. Good morning, Collin. It's just so weird. I don't know if it's set in yet. It just doesn't, like, coming out of the game, it's like, it doesn't feel like we won the game because of how bad we played on offense, and just, we literally didn't do anything. All we did, and credit to Iowa's defense and special teams, is capitalize on Nebraska's fuck ups. I mean, that's the story. It seems like these last couple of years is just letting Nebraska hurt themselves. I mean, that's to me the biggest storyline, and credit to Iowa, winning the turnover margin 2-0. Could have been a lot more, but Nebraska, was able to fall on a couple fumbles. But yeah, we literally didn't do anything on offense. The defense played unbelievable. Special teams was great, and just one of those classic Kirk Ferentz complimentary football wins, I would say.
You just look at everything, total yards to passing yards to, even rushing yards. Think about it. Our bread and butter is running the football. Caleb Johnson and just the run game in general only finished with 49 yards. That is Brian Ferentz-esque offense.
41 plays,
40,
164 yards. I mean, it's just, you can't even make it up.
They had 76 plays. We had 41. First downs, unbelievable. They had 20, which is really good if you think about it. Like 20 first downs in a game, like that's winning football. We only had five first downs. We were 0 for 10 on third downs, and that is something that we've actually been pretty decent at this year. We've been kind of steady around 45%, way better than last year, which we averaged around 28%. But 0 for 10, that's not going to cut it. And you just look down the list, and it's like time of possession, 39-21. It's like, how the hell did we win this game? And obviously, right here, I have four things. Number one, Nebraska just being Nebraska. I mean, let's face it, it has come down. And it's not just this game. Nebraska in one possession games, it's like they are a curse or something at this point, because they always find a way to lose it, whether it's a turnover at the end, doing something stupid. I still think it comes down to, and the reason why I think Iowa has won 9 out of the last 10 against Nebraska is I really think it comes down to culture. I mean, you think about like the era of Scott Frost. I thought Nebraska's culture was horrible. It's improved with Matt Rule. The culture of the two programs are completely different. And I think that's what compels Iowa to just find a way to get a win against them, what seems like every year. Another thing too here that I thought was interesting is average yards per play. Even though I just mentioned all these like stats again for Nebraska, they led us in total yards, passing yards, but the average yards per play, they were 4.4 to ours 4. So it really wasn't that much different in yards per play. Defense came out and played really well in the red zone. I mean, they went 2 for 3. And the reason why I bring that up is because their one miss was that missed field goal. And think about how big of a missed field goal that was. That was coming off. They just scored. It was 10-0. It was halftime. They got the ball to start the third quarter. They go right down the field. They make that field goal to make it 13-0. We're not winning that game. We're just not, we got to score at least 2 touchdowns, or at least get a touchdown and 2 field goals to just tie it up.
Right.
It's probably not going to happen. So them missing that field goal was critical. Obviously, we were 1 for 1 in the red zone. And then turnovers. And this has been that kind of the story of this series, is whoever wins a turnover battle, which more times than not, it has been Iowa as of late, is going to win this game, because it's going to come down to a field goal or a touchdown. And so turnovers are critical. I mean, you think about it, like last year, it came down to a field goal. 2019 came down to a field goal. 2018 came down to a field goal. 2021, we only won by a touchdown. And you think about it, it was that block punt when it was in Lincoln. So, that game, 2022, they were up by a lot. We kind of came back towards the end, but it has just been a very close series. And so, we winning the turnover battle 2-0 is going to help us win this game.
Yeah, you mentioned the missed field goal. I mean, that to me, that was when I was like, okay, we actually somehow have a chance, because I thought the same thing, Colin. I went back to how many times, what does this game come down to? Usually a field goal. And to think that Iowa was going to score 2 touchdowns to win that game, if they would have made that field goal to go up 13, we would have had to score 2 touchdowns to take the lead. I just didn't see that coming. And so if you're going to give Iowa the opportunity to at least kick a field goal, I thought, hey, we have a chance. And man, bad snap, shanked it to the left.
That was a really bad spot.
Really bad kick. And, it just gave Iowa a little bit of life. Not that I don't remember if we did anything with it. And
no, I don't think we did, because then I think shortly after that was a punt that they thought, the guy muffed it, but it wasn't. And then that was crazy.
Again, game comes down to the details. You just mentioned it. Iowa, really good in special teams, really good in defense. Penalties, we had one penalty or something like that. Yeah. No turnovers. Those are you have to execute perfectly in all those areas if you're going to struggle as bad as Iowa did on offense. And obviously that's what propelled us to the win.
I thought when we got the ball at the 4-yard line after that.
Oh boy.
And we didn't score a touchdown. I was like, yeah, there's no way we win this game, because you cannot get the ball at the 4-yard line and not score a touchdown. It felt like the Iowa State game all over again, where we made it impossible to score down by the red zone. And let's keep all this in mind too. We were playing a 4th string walk-on quarterback, and I thought he did pretty good at Maryland. But what did you and I both say? We said we wish we saw a little bit more passing, because the Nebraska game, we are going to have to pass to win that game, because their defensive line, Nebraska's defensive line, is really good. And I just didn't think, I will admit, I thought we would run the ball a little bit better than we did, but I didn't think it was going to be some like with the Maryland game where we were getting 6 yards a carry. We didn't even have to pass the football, because, hey, every time we ran, we set up a 2nd and 3. But I would have liked to see a little bit more passing. We said that with the Maryland game, but we didn't see it. We only saw 14 attempts, right? And then you go into this game, and now you got 70,000 fans surrounding you, a little bit more pressure. You're playing a bigger game. You're not playing at Maryland where there's half the fans are in the stand. There's no one in the stands.
No one.
And you got the pressure with that. True. It's a big game. It's 20 degrees out. Let's make a point there. As it was pretty cold. I don't know if this is something to brag about, but I've been to the 2 coldest games in Kinnick history, 2013 versus Michigan, and then this game. I still think the Michigan game was way worse. That game was brutal because it was so windy. At least this Nebraska game, it wasn't as windy. So, but you had all those factors, and of course, yes, he doesn't look very good, and I kind of expected that in a way. I thought maybe he would be a little bit better in the passing game, but he looked rattled early on. To me, and this is kind of the next thing I want to talk about, is just kind of the play calling by Tim Lester, because I have been behind him this entire year, and I still am, don't get me wrong, but I do think this was a bad game for Lester. I really believe that. I just don't really understand what the game plan was coming in. Obviously, yes, running the football, but I jotted down here the first 7 drives that we did. The first down play was a run, all 7 times. -1 rush, -1 rush, 4-yard rush, -1 rush. We finally got 11-yard rush, 4-yard rush, and then no yards. And then the 8th drive, I think we did do a passing play, but it was a quarterback keeper. Then the 9th drive was another run. And then the 10th drive was the passing play to Jacob Gill to set up 17 yards. And then we went into the 4th quarter, and then obviously Caleb Johnson had that amazing run. But so you had that going. It's I get it, but it's it's the tendency, they know what's coming. There were times where they were loading, 9, 10 guys in the box, and we were just doing a up the middle run. We finally started in the second half, finally incorporating the motion a little bit, and it was working. We did that end around to Seth Anderson. I don't know why it took so long to start doing that, to go more to the outside. We just kept trying to attack the middle. We weren't really doing much play action. One thing Jackson Stratton has is a good arm. So when we had the wind behind our back, why are we not taking a couple of shots down the field? Let's just stretch the field a little bit, make their defense not play 10 guys in the box. But we just kept letting it happen. And it's like, yeah, no, it's no brainer that their defensive coordinator was just going to do that. They know that this quarterback is a walk on. He's not that good. And we're going to make him beat us. We're not going to let Caleb Johnson beat us. We're going to make him beat us. And so they were just teeing us off, attacking the run lanes. And, like I said, putting so many guys in the box.
Yeah. That first half, I remember seeing at halftime, it was 20. We ran 20 offensive plays and we had 20 total yards. I've never seen that, to be honest with you. I can't remember a time you average 1 yard per play in a half of football. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And give a lot of credit to Nebraska. They came in with the game plan. You just mentioned it. Let's send 10 guys at Caleb Johnson and make a 4-string quarterback try to beat us. And we never really adjusted, especially in the first half. You're exactly right. I thought, we didn't go to anything that Stratton, to try to get Stratton in a rhythm, quick screen, a slant route, something quick and easy to Gill, to Caleb Johnson, like we did out of the backfield when he actually scored the touchdown. Just simple things to try to actually get him into a rhythm. I think I saw one RPO that, credit to the D lineman, he batted it down. But I only saw one RPO. And that maybe is affected by the fact that he's not as mobile as a guy like Sullivan. So maybe that the RPO game is a little more suited to him. But, just things that I feel like we were really good at, the toss plays, those power toss plays to Caleb Johnson, even in the run game, right? Like you said, trying to be creative with motion and trying to confuse the defense a little. There was nothing the defense was. It felt like last year. It felt like Brian Ferentz was calling plays in that first half. I think you even told me that after the game, and it was hard to watch, really.
Yeah, right before Caleb Johnson had that long run. It was maybe a quarter before I turned to Colby in the stands. I was like, I don't know why we're not doing easy passing plays for Jackson just to get him in some sort of rhythm, like you mentioned, like doing a halfback screen or some sort of quick, maybe a halfback pass to, Caleb and let him in space make something out of it. And shortly after we do that, and that play should only went for a couple yards. And number one, that was a bad pass by Jackson. He kind of threw it behind him.
It was.
Should have went for 4 yards maybe. And Caleb Johnson, the best player on the field, look what happens when you give him the ball in space. He's going to make plays. And sure enough, he did. And he's obviously the reason we won that game, because if he gets tackled for a 4 or 5 yard gain, we don't get the first down because then it's like 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 9. And it's just the same story because we can't drive down the field. So we don't score a touchdown at all that game if it wasn't for Caleb. And then one other thing that I jotted down here that I just hated so much in the first quarter, we're at the Nebraska 49. It's 3rd and 1. Number one, why is Caleb Johnson not out there? Shotgun up the middle to Jazz, 0 yards. And to me,
was that his first carry too?
It might have been his first carry. This was in the first quarter.
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't like the play call. It's like, whatever. You think you should get a yard by, shotgun up the middle. And then in the fourth quarter, we do that end around to Seth Anderson. We get 9 yards. It's 2nd and 1. Okay. We bring in Kamari Moulton. We run up the middle. No gain. Okay. 3rd down play. Shotgun. Run up the middle with Kamari again. Where is Caleb Johnson, who just scored a touchdown on the series before? No gain. Yep. And then we have to punt. It's shit like that annoys me.
Yep.
And a lot of times this year, it's been really good. Like I said, I've been behind Lester's back. I've been advocating. I've been loving everything he's doing. But some of those play calls, I just didn't quite understand. It does make me wonder if Kirk was maybe in the headset, maybe a little bit more with this game because of how low scoring and the possession and things like that. If he was maybe altering some of the stuff that Lester was wanting to do, I don't know. That's something we'll never know, but it seemed like a really weird game. It really seemed like Brian Ferentz was up in the booth and not Tim Lester against Friday. But hey, we still won. It's like, we complain all we want. Obviously, if we would have lost, it would have been a lot more negative and actually like, what the hell? Like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? But we did win the game. I just wanted to point those things out because it did bother me a little bit, because I get it. We were playing a four-string
at that point,
walk-on.
we didn't know how the game was. We're not going to predict a walk-off field goal at that point. And my biggest thing with that, and I'll wrap it up, it's like you said, not to, bring out too many negatives after such a great, win, but it's like if you're going to run up the middle, you run up with Caleb Johnson. There's no other option. You got to get a yard. You give it to the best player on the field, like you said. And he didn't have he was, like you said, he was getting those first down play calls. He was getting negative yards. He was getting only 4 yards or whatever it was. But you trust in that situation to hand it off to your bell cow back, who I'm looking right now only had 17 carries for the game. And I'm not saying that he should have had more or anything like that, because he couldn't run the ball. He just couldn't. Yeah. So I'm not saying that, but you get him the ball enough times, I think good things eventually will happen. And that's where I think we missed out on those few opportunities to actually extend drives, like you mentioned. So, yeah.
I'm going to bring up the drive chart here quick before we kind of go off to the next segment here. You look at Iowa's drive chart. I mean, that is absolutely brutal in the first half. Punt, 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 punt. And then just look at the time of possession, like 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. And I think you said at one point when Nebraska scored to make it 10-0, and we're all mad, like, oh, why do we just allow Nebraska down the field to score a touchdown? Even Colby was getting pissed. And it's like, and you said it too, it's like, what do you expect when the offense is literally not getting a first down? They are 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out. Eventually, we're going to break down on defense, and they're going to score. The fact that we only gave up 10 points, considering the fact that our offense was that bad. I mean, this literally felt like what like the last 2 years felt like with like the Deacon Hill era, with the Spencer Petras era, where we were so bad on offense, but the defense was so good that it didn't matter. Because this year, it's really been like, with the defense just kind of breaking down, where it's like when our offense isn't as good, our defense just isn't quite elite like the last couple of years. And so we lose, like the Michigan State game, like the UCLA game. Yeah. But this game really felt like the last 2 years where offense is that bad, but it doesn't matter. We still will win.
It took till the 5th drive. I'm looking to, for our first, is that our first down? The 4 plays, 11 yards? That would have been a first down.
Yeah,
right?
that might have been our first down.
You look at it, like you said, and in that first 4 possessions, 2, 3, 4, you're looking at like, in the first 4 or 5 possessions, you're looking at like maybe 5 minutes chewed off the clock. I mean, what do you expect from the defense? You cannot. And I didn't care if Nebraska scored. That's why it's impressive that we won this game, and you got to give all the credit to the defense, because they could have easily, we've seen games where the offense isn't clicking and all of a sudden the defense isn't either. And this could have got ugly. And that's where this, where you give all the credit to the defense.
I love looking at these drive statistics. Average time of possession, 1 minute, 34 seconds, 6 3 and outs. Average third down distance, 6.5. Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing with Iowa's offense. You gotta be like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. Yeah. When you're third, if you're averaging 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, especially with a walk-on quarterback, it's not going to be good. Drive success rate, 33%.
Average own starting field position. We actually had our own 37 compared to Nebraska, their own 22. 15-yard difference, and we didn't do anything with it.
Yep. And then you look at Nebraska. I mean, yes, they went right down the field right away. Bend but don't break. Gave up 1 touchdown. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to get mad at the defense for that. And then the third quarter, or second half, I should say, first drive, they go down the field, bend but don't break. They missed the field goal. And then the rest of the game, they couldn't do anything. Punt, fumble. So just a great defensive performance by Iowa. It really felt good because once again, like this year, the defense, I'm not saying it was like, once again, it was still a good defense. It just wasn't what we have, kind of come to expect with this defense. And so it was really cool to finally see a game where like the defense was
dominating performance.
Very, dominating.
Man, just beating Nebraska in the fashion that we did, and Drew Stevens' redemption after last year of getting benched. It just, I don't care really the stats. That was our bowl game. We talked about it going into the game. I just want to beat Nebraska, and to do it that way, hey, I'll take it any day of the week, man.
Yeah, and then for me, it was just like watching, Caleb Johnson one last time, and obviously didn't have a good game running the football, but that play might have been one of the coolest plays I've witnessed, in person in Kinnick, because it was just, you go from like, oh, he's going to get 4 or 5 yards. Okay, he breaks a tackle. All right, he breaks another tackle. All right, he breaks another tackle. And it was just, And once again, against Nebraska too, is what makes it even more
Yep.
sweeter. And yeah, the walk-off field goal, kind of in the same area that we had that heartbreaking loss with Iowa State with their field goal kicker. It was literally on the same hash. The only difference was I think his was a 54-yarder. This was a 53-yarder. And so it was like, at least it happened for us, right? Like we were on the winning side of things. So yeah, it was really cool to see. All right. So before we get into maybe some college football talk, I do want to bring up Cade McNamara one last time because he didn't participate in the senior walkout. We were talking a little bit about this last week. We were kind of wondering if he was going to or not. But no, he did not. And it makes you wonder, I think for some people it was like, okay, what's, maybe people are kind of going through the, rabbit hole of, okay, what's really going on? I personally believe he's going to try to get another year. Not at Iowa. So I don't think people, don't freak out, people. I think it's pretty much evident that we've kind of moved on, and I think he's going to go somewhere. To me, it's like, dude, just hang up the cleats. I mean, you're going to probably be 25 years old. You've been in college for like 7 years now. Hang up the cleats, but he's probably going to go to a smaller school. And I think that's probably the reason why he didn't walk out on senior days, because he's probably not technically done with college. But just thought I would bring that up because I thought it was kind of interesting not seeing him out there. Jamari Harris walked out and he had a round of applause, which was really cool to see, because once again, like, it was like, okay, are people going to boo Jamari and Cade since they've kind of,
the only other thing that I was thinking of, and you just took the words right out of my mouth, is if Cade walks out of there, do you think he just doesn't want to get booed? I mean, I think,
and I wonder if that's another thing too. If that's the reason why he wanted, like, I don't even want to deal with that.
Yeah. So, because I don't know, I would hate to have anyone boo a person on senior day. I mean, I think that's not very good. But
and let's get into some of these games before we end it here. We only have a few minutes left, but the Ohio State Michigan game, crazy game. I mean, who would have thought Michigan, a 21, 22 point underdog, losing to everybody that they lost last year, going into Ohio State with a $20 million roster and forking up a loss. I mean, this was a really, really bad loss for Ryan Day. Just my quick thing with this game was I don't know what Ohio State was doing. It literally felt like an Iowa game plan. There was multiple times, like, for example, they got an interception. They're in plus territory. They're up, or it's tied 10-10. And they elect to, their 3 play calls were just horrible. And on 3rd down and 10, you got the best receivers in the country, and they elect to run the football for a couple yards to set up a field goal, which they ended up missing. Like, that's you're not winning football. And that's literally Kirk Ferentz to a T. That's Iowa football. And so I just don't understand what Ohio State was doing. Their game plan was horrible. And I know Joe Klatt kept talking about it. It's like, I understand you want to run the football to keep things, consistent, but you got the best playmakers on the outside of the field, and Michigan's down one of their best corners. You got to attack that, because the one thing Michigan is good at is their defensive line. And so what are you doing? Why do you keep trying to go down up the middle? It's not working. And so that's what, for me, I just didn't quite understand with Ohio State.
And Michigan not having Will Johnson
that's
the best corner in the country, but you could argue, and not taking advantage of that, like you said, with the best receivers in the country as a whole by probably a long shot is crazy. And Ryan Day his seat is on, like, it's so on fire. You can't even see the seat anymore. So
I really believe unless he makes it to the Natty, I don't even know if he has to win it, but as long as he maybe wins a couple games in the playoffs, he'll probably keep his job. But I really believe that, if they lose right away in the playoffs, or something stupid happens, I just don't see how they keep him, because that Michigan game, it's such a big game. I mean, we think the Iowa State game means something, but it's it's even a bigger scale. And then you look at Michigan, who just won the Natty last year. They're bringing in a 5-star quarterback. Like Ohio State, you got to win those type of games. And losing in that fashion at home, you're that big of a, with the point spread, you got to win, Ryan Day. You just got to. And it's been now 4 years in a row. Who would have thought, those so many years of Ohio State just beating them,
dominating,
to think that Michigan would beat them 4 years in a row.
Pre-COVID, because they didn't play in 2020.
Yeah.
It's been 2019 since Ohio State beat Michigan.
won, which is, and I just thought like this year with everybody Michigan lost and with everybody that came back for Ohio State, and they were talking about on the broadcast, a lot of these guys that came back for Ohio State, they came back because they want to beat Michigan, because a lot of these guys have not beat Michigan, right? It's been 3 years in a row. And so they wanted to come back to beat Michigan, and they still couldn't. So it's just crazy. I do think Ohio State obviously still makes it at 2 losses. I mean, that's as an Ohio State fan, the good thing about the 12-team playoff, because obviously if it was still the 4-team playoff, they would have, not made it. And I really think then Ryan Dave's seat would have been even hotter. So they still have a chance to obviously regroup here and still make it, but they're probably going to be, an 8, 9, 10, maybe 11 seed where like they probably will have to go on the road the first round, game now, versus like if they would have won yesterday, but even if they would have lost next week, they would have still been like the 5 or 6 seed. So they would have had a home game playoff.
And that's what sucks for now, whoever's, up in that spot. It's like your first game, you got to play Ohio State. Which, when you look at it that way, you're like, if you're the other team, you're like, cool. Like that's the 10 seed that I'm playing, or whatever. Yep. But the road becomes, you're going to play on the road if you're Ohio State to win a national championship. You just are. So
now it's Oregon, Penn State. And I think with Penn State, even if they lose against Oregon, they'll finish with only 2 losses. So I think the Big Ten, Indiana's for sure making it. They beat Purdue like 66-0. You have Ohio State. So those 2 teams are going to make it. And then you got Oregon, who's for sure going to make it. And then Penn State as well. So Big Ten will have 4 teams. Yep. 4 teams in the playoffs. And then you got the Big 12, Iowa State getting it done against Kansas State, playing Arizona State in the Big 12 championship. So that game, whoever loses that game is out of it, because that team is going to have 3 losses at that point, and they're not going to bring a 3-loss Big 12 team in. The only conference that's ever going to have a 3-loss team is going to be the SEC, because they just love the SEC, right? Maybe the Big 10 in some years, but it's mainly going to be the SEC. So the Big 12 championship Big 12 is only going to have 1 team in, and whoever wins that game is off to the playoffs. And it's going to be really interesting to see, because if you're an Iowa State fan, or if you're an Arizona State fan, you're cheering like hell for UNLV to beat Boise State, because as of right now, Boise State has that 4th seed, which is the bye. Yep. So Arizona State, Iowa State, they would have the 12th seed. And so they would have to play on the road against the 5 seed, which is going to be a team like Georgia, or if Georgia beats Texas, right? The 5 seed. Yep. So that's going to be a very challenging game versus being the 4 seed, having a bye week, and then, playing then, in, one of the bowl games, the Rose Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl or something like that. So that's going to be an interesting game. I think that's going to be a really good game because I think they're both evenly matched. I think Arizona State's offense is obviously their rushing offense is really good. Iowa State's rushing defense isn't that good, even though they looked better last night. And so it's going to be a very fascinating game. I'm excited for that game, and I'm excited for honestly all the championship games. I think they're all going to be pretty damn good. I was hoping for an Oregon-Ohio State rematch, but I still think that game is going to be pretty good, considering the fact of the last, how many years in the divisions. You got the West Division, East Division, and usually the Big 12 championship. Let's face it, even though when Iowa makes it out, admit, have not been good. Those Big 10 championship games have not been that good the last how many years. And so getting away from divisions, you're going to always have pretty good matchups, which I like.
Best of the best.
Well, that will do it for this episode. We'll see what kind of the next couple of weeks bring. Obviously, with the portal era coming back up here soon, the bowl season starting up, we'll definitely have some podcasts out. It just probably won't be as consistent as it's been. So we'll just kind of go with, things come up and things like that. So that will do it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening, and go Hawks.